Good afternoon, members of parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media. Welcome to this public meeting number 10 of today, Friday, December 16th, 2022. And of course, visitors in the Public Tribune, good afternoon and welcome. I would like to give a special welcome to the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunications, Mr. Omar Otley, and his support staff. We have established a quorum of now going on 10. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of late arrival from the Member of Parliament, Rolando Bryson, and the Prime Minister is arriving now as well. And we would like to welcome the Prime Minister. If she was here before, we apologize for that. Does any member have a notification at this time? I see there is none. We have as agenda points for this public meeting, discussion of the general reconstruction of Princess Juliana International Airport, incoming document 188 of the current parliamentary year, dated November 14, 2022. The meeting was requested by MPs Christophe Emmanuel, Grisha Heiliger-Martin, and Rian Peterson. We go over to the agenda point. On the 14th of November 2022, Parliament received a letter from MP Christophe Emmanuel, MP Grisha Heiliger-Martin, and MP Rian Peterson with a request that an urgent public meeting of Parliament be convened to discuss the above-mentioned agenda point. The presence of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Tiat was also requested. This letter, as stated before, is registered as incoming document 188 of the current parliamentary year and dated November 14th, 2022. All members received a copy of this document via email, which can also be found on the P drive of Parliament. At this time, I would like to first give the floor to the requesters of this meeting to motivate their request before we open the meeting. To which of the three requesters can I give the floor? None of them. I would now like to give the floor to the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister indicated no, the floor will be given to the Minister of Economic Affairs, Transport, Telecommunication, Mr. Omar Otley. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to the honorable members of Parliament, my honorable colleague, Prime Minister, and my support staff. Mr. Chairman, if you would allow us just a couple of minutes to get the presentation set up. It's actually, we tried to email it, but it's too large to email. So we are doing it on a USB stick right now. So if you give us a couple of minutes, please.
Just double check. That's. All right. How when you present it, don't show them much, right?
No.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of Parliament. Afternoon, members of Parliament. I would like to provide you a presentation prepared by the management team of the Princess Juliana International Airport. I would like to indicate it is important for a few points of clarity. See? Today's agenda, we touch on the airport today, summary, project overview, project timeline, and the project variation order 25, which is the intermittent paint. On the third slide, we have here a video presentation. The video was actually made by the Princess Juliana Airport, and it will be a first part of a docu-series to show the inside of the airport and the airport reconstruction. Explain. You're going back. You're going back. The next one. Give it. It's not playing. It's supposed to be a video. Okay. The sound, Alvin? I have to tell you that a video has sound. Okay, so what we're gonna do, without further ado, let's go to the next.
Just show it. You need a sound?
Yeah, I need the sound. The sound is important.
I can narrate it for you. We won't adjourn the meeting necessarily while the meeting is still in session, but Alvin will be trying to upload the sound. So rather than adjourning and waiting, as soon as the sound is up, we're good to go. See now the business deal? The meeting was not adjourned, so you can proceed.
So I hereby present to the members of parliament a video that was made by the Princess Juliana
Airport in
Internat.
St. Martin, one of the busiest airports in the Eastern Caribbean. And this is how Princess Juliana International Airport looks now. Battered, beaten, a mess. How did we get from this to this? So before we explain and get into the deepness of Princess Juliana International Airport, AKA the Princess, first we got to go through a little bit of history of how we got here. Let's go back to 1942. St. Martin, this was an airstrip for World War II. In 1943, the first commercial flight landed here at Princess Juliana International Airport, which actually wasn't named Princess Juliana International Airport yet. Not until 1944 is when the princess herself came, future queen, landed here on St. Martin. And I can imagine the people just lining up back in the days to watch the princess land here at the airport. Then in 1964, the airport was remodeled. So if you remember, like I remember, the old airport with the yellow buildings, Cafe Juliana, you had the open air, you check in, you would wait for your people to come off the plane. Kind of like that concept. And then in 2006 is the building that you see here today, it was built. Now, here comes the hard part. 2017, September 6th, major hurricane. That's when the you-know-what hit the fan. Hurricane Irma, Category 5, over 180 miles per hour, hit St. Martin, and it wreaked havoc on this place, big time. The whole roof comes off, there's sand, there's water, there's everything in here. Now, the key thing about this building was supposed to be hurricane proof, but it had kind of a little fault, which was the main doors. So the main doors to the airport actually blew in. And once those main doors blew in, that's when everything else came in. All the rain, all the water, all the sand, not just inside the building, but also outside. You have all the fences gone. You have the lights for the runway gone. And don't forget the control tower, gone. All that electronics, all that wiring, all wet, salt water, just damaged beyond repair. And not only that, you have the equipment, all the equipment in there, from the luggage equipment to the computers to check in, all that is soaking wet, damaged. So you can just imagine all of the water coming in, the rain, the sand, and then you have what's left over here, all this rubble that they had to basically gut the whole building. Now, a lot of people don't understand that this whole building had to be gutted. They couldn't leave anything basically to chance, because you might leave something and then 6 months, 7 months later, it's not working, the rust, it's no good. So they just had to gut everything. Not only that, the plumbing system, the fire system, the water for the fire protection, they had to flush all of that out. And then you have the vents for the AC. All those are filled with water, salt water, and that means you're gonna get mold. And if you know about mold is very, very hard to defeat. You have to clean everything precisely to get rid of mold. If you don't know about mold, just ask the St. Martin Fire Department. They'll tell you all about mold. It's hard to get rid of. So all the ducts had to get removed. What couldn't be saved, the small ducts, everything. What can be cleaned, what can't be cleaned. And you just can't get into removing mold with any Tom, Dick, and Harry. You got to bring in certified people who know exactly what they're doing. They have to be certified. All the mold has to be thrown away properly, discarded properly, cleaned, because you know, if you don't
So what you see here in the video basically is an illustration, and the airport is planning to do step-by-step videos that will be released weekly or bi-weekly to show now a more in-depth progress. But what is important to recognize is that was stated inside of the video, the entire airport had to be gutted. The wiring, everything had to be replaced. Here are some of the effects from Hurricane Irma, just to recap. Next slide. Terminal. Next slide. Next slide. Here is pictures of the pavilion. So this was the next step towards recovery, where we had to install tents and pavilions for the passengers. Here was the baggage claim area after Irma and the updated baggage claim area. So we move to the PGIAE project introduction. The reconstruction of terminal building has three important aspects: the time, the price, and the numbers. It is very important, very, very important to realize that the signing for the funding of the commencement of the construction took place October 2021. After mobilization, the construction itself started December 2021. We often use the misconception of saying it took 5 years to reconstruct. However, the signing only took place October 2021. This is very important. We also heard claims, even as a member of parliament or as a minister, why does it cost more to renovate than to make the airport itself? We have many factors to consider. One, we adjust requirements from 150 miles per hour winds to 185 per hour winds. There's new innovations that will be in place, such as machine learning, biometric facial recognition. There's also inflation from 2007 to now 2022. The baggage handling system is a new innovation which allows passengers to identify their baggage upon departure, all improvements that will be made, and in preparation for U.S. pre-clearance as well. Next slide. Here are some of the temporary facilities. Next slide. So I move to the phasing. Phase 1 was from March 2018 to July 2018, which was rust-proofing panels, installation of metal sheetings, installation of PVC membrane, waterproofing the roof. Here we see phase 2, August to December 2018, new Omega profiles, installation, roof sheets to withstand now 185 miles per hour wind. We have phase 3, bullnose, lighting, infrastructure, and suffix. Here we have the cost for construction. We have a total of $7.5 million given by the World Bank. We have $50 million by the EIB, and the Princess Juliana International Airport injected $34 million to the project. 70.5 from the World Bank, sorry, just for correction. Upon the commencement of construction, September 10th, there was a job fair held in collaboration with my other CAP, Ministry of VSI, to hire as much local resources. This was indeed a success. On the next slide, you can see the amount of workers that are on the project. It was definitely a success. I'm happy. We have over 130 local personnel on this airport project working today. We now move to what I know is the meat of the matter and the cause of the current delay, the fire protection. The fire protection mostly needed in large-scale industrial spaces, public building and facilities. The intermittent steel paint is designed to keep the steel structure intact during a fire by increasing the time period that the structural load-bearing steel within a building will last. The paint works as an intermixing and expanding by heat, creating an insulated barrier on the steel and helps protect the structure from collapse. The terminal building internal structure steel originally had fire retardant intermissing paint for safety. The paint was not waterproof and was damaged during Hurricane Irma. So here we have in 2017, the intermissing layer was identified by the assessment report of ABT NARCO. It was recommended to change. The building was not fully clean and had not been gutted out as yet. First, it was verified in May 2022 by Ballas and Adam, the contractor. It was overlooked by the engineer and the architect of the project and stated as fix, repair, rather than fully replace. Project evaluation will be scheduled under the leadership of the World Bank and NRPB. The contractor, Ballas and Adam, gave 3 options to repair the intermissing fire layer. This was reviewed and supported by experts. The total cost of the intermissing paint replacement is $9.7 million. The duration is 7 months. The new project is scheduled to be made. Here I present options that was given to me and the COM. The first option was an option of 6 months. This was to erect a temporary facility because there's a lot of complaints from the workers and immigrations about the noise, the dust that takes place in the day. The contractors even started to work at night at one point, but the productivity level was not good. As minister and the COM fully agreed, we said, no way, we are not going backwards. We are not putting people in tents. We demanded them to find another option, in which option 2 at the time was the only other option for 10 months. Together with the airport and the experts, we managed to find a solution that took us from 10 months delay to 7 months, with still hopes that we can bring down the time. So we chose option 3 to deliver in stages. What is important is that we intend to have the departure hall up and running by September 2023, before the season. That is the priority. We broke the project down in stages and created a priority for each and every aspect, and which brought it to a total of 7 months extension. Thank you. 1 minute, please, if you allow me, Mr. Chair. Where's my emails? So, Mr. Chairman and members of Parliament, as Minister of TIAT, Acting Minister of TIAT, the due diligence was done. I have emails and correspondence with the airport from August 28th, September 24th, when I found out through the media that of the delay, like everyone else, and so did the COM. We have correspondence October 24th and November 18th, questioning the airport and asking for monthly updates. The COM has requested quarterly meetings with the airport with written updates, and I, as Acting Minister of TIAT, have requested monthly updates. Some of the questions, just to give an overview on that was sent on September 23rd to the airport, were as follows. Just some. How regularly do you have a progress report, and when was the last time? Mind you, now, these replies are immediately after we found out of the delay. They responded, there are bi-weekly meetings with the PMU and steering committee, and the last one was September 9th. When did the management team of PGIAE NV know about the delay? Was this communicated to either or both the supervisory board or the board of directors? The PMU received the first indication of the 10-month delay August 31st, 2022. The SBOD and the PMU Project Management Unit received the first indication, I'm repeating myself, so the SBOD and the PGIAH were informed in June and July about the issue of the intermissing paint and the possibility for a 6-month delay. They were updated about the 10-month delay after the leak of the social media. You stated in your letter that you anticipated, when was the last report submitted to the investors? They were informed about the 10-month delay after it was released in social media. So we asked a very important question. Do you foresee an event or default of PGIAE obligations? If so, when? How do you intend to remedy such breach? No, we do not anticipate any default. There are numerous emails sent. We will be happy to what we can to send to the members of parliament. Myself and the government has been on top of it. We can relay what is relayed to us. Accountability has to be held. Accountability will be held. According to the World Bank, in a recent meeting, they don't find at this moment that it is time to, for lack of a better words, backfighting. So they said that at the end of the project, a full analysis, evaluation will be done to determine who exactly is at fault and what type of repercussions will take place. So I can say we are faced with problems. We have been faced with problems, but as I always say, instead of looking back, we can find solutions. And we were able to find a solution without moving the persons out of the building, but unfortunately, it caused us a 7-month delay. So once the evaluation is done, we will be happy as CALM to notify the Parliament on the evaluation and the findings done by not only the World Bank, but on request of the CALM by the holding company. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to any questions from the members of Parliament.
Thank you, Minister Otley, for that introduction, and we now go to the speakers list. I want to remind all members that the allotted time in this round is 20 minutes, and in the second round, it will be 10 minutes. We have a speakers list so far of 3 members, and the first speaker is MP Grisha Heilige-Martin. MP, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to my fellow colleagues. Good afternoon to the Minister of TIAT and Prime Minister and support staff. Good afternoon to those listening and viewing online. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Chairman, seemingly the PGIA team was on a media blitz this week, and a nice little presentation. But based on what the CEO stated yesterday in the article, let's talk about then now the long-awaited envy of the Caribbean neighbor, according to the CEO. That's what he said it's going to be soon. But Mr. Chairman, do you know what that means for us? Do you know how we the people feel right now about that reality ever becoming evident? Like a carrot stick dangling in front of us every time we keep getting closer to our goalpost, like the one signed in October 21st, 2020-21 with Ballas Needham. It continues pulling back. They continue taking that carrot and pulling it back and back and back every time we get closer. So, Mr. Chairman, my main focus today will be inquiries about, of course, the reconstruction process in and within itself, but most importantly, the management and the supervising of the reconstruction and the functionality of the airport. Where these questions may be, hopefully, Mr. Chairman, through you, these questions can help the CALM get into the reality of what's really happening at the airport. I truly believe that herein lies the motives as to why we're here today, Mr. Chairman. Anyone ever heard of the Head & Shoulders commercial? You never get a chance, a second chance to make a first impression. Ever heard of that one? First impressions, Mr. Chairman, they matter. And although the average waiting time at the airport is 45 minutes to an hour and a half long, some airports like Miami International Airport, LAX, JFK, and Heathrow, to name a few, are notoriously known for even longer waiting lines. But I can stand here today, Mr. Chairman, and safely say they could afford to do that. We can't, not St. Martin. We have a one-pillar economy, Mr. Chairman. And we have one opportunity and one chance to make the first impression. The customer journey is what makes the customer experience, and it starts and ends well. And if it starts and ends well, the customer is very likely to retain positive memories about it. The CEO again stated yesterday in the Daily Herald article, the only approach is tactical. All hands on deck. Bottled water, Wi-Fi, and can I help? I'm trying to say it the way the CEO would say it. Really, Mr. Chairman? Where's the empathy? Where are the numerous signages consistently apologizing for the inconvenience? Not those two measly signs we see there. Who knows how far some of our passengers have traveled and to be greeted with chaos? And they don't want to hear from a flight crew, which I've heard on numerous occasions, that sorry for the inconvenience. No, Mr. Chairman, they want to hear it from the airport with sincerity and empathy. An apology and some empathy will go a long way, Mr. Chairman. You know, Mr. Chairman, I'm a strong proponent, as many of you already know, of putting our people first and giving them an opportunity to grow. I remember when I was eager to become the marketing and sales manager at Smithcombs, and the then managing director, Mr. Curtis Haynes, said, Grisha, you can't take this position yet because you don't have your master's. Get your master's and you're in. I went away, got my master's, and his word was born, and he allowed me to grow, and I thank him to this day. But on the other hand, Mr. Chairman, I'm also a strong proponent of placing the right people, St. Martin people, in the right positions. Jack Welch, who was the CEO for GE for about 20 years, once said, when we get the right people in the right job, we won the game. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, we've been losing this game a lot recently, especially in the recent years. And it's situations like these led by incompetence by some of our own that has gotten us where we are today. This is why it is imperative that we give our own the right resources, the knowledge and training, and most importantly, the opportunity to help them grow, Mr. Chairman. So the next set of questions I'm about to pose surrounds the functioning of the company, which might be potentially tied to maybe the failures of the reconstruction. So here goes, Mr. Chairman. The airport has had 3 CFOs during the last 3 years. What's the status of the CFO counterpart? We keep asking this question over and over and over and over. I want a truthful answer. The managing board, as mentioned before, has hit its 3rd resignation of a Schiphol referred CFO under the leadership of the CEO. What is the reasons for the CFO's abrupt resignation? When will the resignation of the CFO be announced to the airport community? Correct me if I'm wrong, and I could be wrong. It has officially been sent to the COM and became public via the media. But the airport community, the workers, was never officially informed. Since the dismissal of the former COO, has there been any vacancies placed for this position? If yes, when exactly has it begun? And if not, why not? And while on the topic of vacancies, Mr. Chairman, why are the airport employees witnessing ads posting internationally before posting them internally and locally? Is there a reason for this, or specific ads only that goes internationally or before, or are not internally? And can we get a copy of PJIA recruitment policy? Mr. Chairman, I was made to understand that the existing HR director was a manager for months before becoming the HR director, and that vacancy was never posted internally. Is there any truth to this, Mr. Chairman, or was proper procedure followed? Has any training been issued by a Royal Schiphol Group to any of the employees thus far? If yes, please provide a list of these trainings and to whom and which department. If not, why not as yet? While on the topic of training, come January 7, 2023, the CEO of PGIA will be there for 4 years. My question to the minister is, through you, Mr. Chair, has he taken any form of aviation training? Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's seemingly a high influx of employees, mostly from the Netherlands, hired in top management positions. Are these positions temporary or are they permanent? Are there plans for changing the current organizational structure? If yes, will it be done with the existing employees having first right of refusal, first preference? Mr. Chairman, the Project Management Unit, PMU, is a department that supervises Ballast Needham on behalf of PJIA. What is the full makeup of PMU? What's the hierarchy, the structure? Does it include existing employees of the airport? If yes, who are they and which department do they represent, and who else externally forms part of this unit? Does the PMU consult with managers of PJIA? Do they keep them abreast of the developments? Or is this a case of them just working independently? Are there plans to add more persons in the PMU? If yes, what is it? Who are they? What is it? Does the airport employ a structural engineer in its project planning systems department, the PPS department? If yes, is this person part of the PMU? If so, what role does he or she play inside of the PMU? If not, why doesn't he or she participate in the PMU? Mr. Chairman, let's delve deeper into the overall financials of PGIA. I saw it was very brief and quick, so I may have to ask again, and maybe the minister will have to clarify it. When Schiphol, Royal Hassing Konings, or Ballast Needham informed PGIAE of any cost overruns for the reconstruction of the terminal, what was the total cost indicated? Please explain, is there any clause in the reconstruction contract of PGIA that identifies PGIA from additional costs related to third-party disputes and delays? If a legal dispute develops between PGIAE and Ballast Needham, how will this affect the reconstruction of PGIA? In 2021, the COM in Parliament was informed that the terminal would be finished by, I think it was early or mid-2023. However, it is now revealed that the terminal will now be finished in 12 months, so 2024. What financial impact does this delay have overall on the business and the island's economy? And this goes directly for the Minister of TIAT. How much money has PGIAE borrowed overall to this point? In 2019, Vida Nova proposed an alternate financing option in the amount of $240 million to PGIAE, PGIAH, and at the time, the CEO and the then, I think it was the second one, not even short at this point, made an assertion that the sum of $240 million would put the company out of business. I'm not sure what I saw there, but are we currently not over 200 million? And if yes, what financial repercussions will the airport face if the project's used cost overruns continue? Is the company's financial situation taken into account once the project is finished? Should we be concerned with PGIAE's ability to continue operating after the project, especially in light of the fact that PGIAE is losing market share and that PGIAE would suffer financial losses as a result of an unfinished terminal? Most importantly, is PGIAE confident that the delivery of the departure hall and other locations will occur on schedule this time? Through you, Mr. Chair, my next set of questions are now tied to the reconstruction and Ballast Needham. I was made to understand, Mr. Chair, that the airline handlers were recently asked to vacate their interim offices and return to containers because Ballast Needham is in need of the space for construction. Now, after the interim phase, what was supposed to happen was After this interim phase, the final step was to move them to their permanent location, provided a finalization of phase one, which unfortunately didn't occur. So my question is, why move them back in containers and why not finish phase one? Why the back and forth? Last week I arrived on St. Martin from the Netherlands to the sounds of jackhammering above the immigration section. I stood there for a few minutes, luckily for me. I don't have to stay too long. But I couldn't even hear myself think. Imagine the immigration workers, those working to welcome the guests, and the little that's left of the EAS employees that's still there. How in God's graceful name can they work in such chaos? My question, or rather suggestion, and I heard the minister mention it before, is, and it wasn't clear for me, why are they not considering the jackhammering at a less busier time? Like at night, he mentioned it's not working. I want him to explain to me why at night, why it cannot work at night. Is there a financial reason? What is the reason why we can't do it during our less time? This is peak of the season. Why are we not thinking on the experience of our people as they come in? We're not looking at it to only accommodate our guests, but what if a debris fall on the ceiling and hurt someone, a guest or one of the workers? What is PGIE's intention with dealing with that unpleasant experience at the airport terminal? It wasn't clear to me in that presentation. Other than the obvious natural disaster, what other potential setbacks can we expect from Ballast Needham that can potentially hamper the finalization of this reconstruction? Is there an exit clause in place in the agreement with the Ballast Needham? Has there been any request from Ballast Needham for additional funding other than that of the, I think it was 9 million, I'm not sure that's what he said, or are these tied to delays? Mr. Chairman, I was recently made to understand that Ballast Needham bought the wrong paint and realized it after the steel was already painted. Is there any truth to this? If it is true, how was the fire retardant paint, which was mentioned in the initial assessment of the building's damage, omitted from the tender? Is this listed as one of the reasons of the delays? I think you answered that in your presentation already. Who is being held responsible and liable for this mistake? Does COM, and I see you're still working towards that. Hopefully by next month, we'll know. Does the COM hold the management board and the supervisory board accountable for all errors and cost overruns that have been made so far in connection with the terminal renovations project? Mr. Chairman, I have a few more minutes. I would like to end my line of questioning for the most directly surrounding the figures and the stats of the airport, as well as the government's stance and vision for the airport. So allow me to pose through you, Mr. Chair, a few more questions. What are the projected and actual arrival numbers for this season between November 2022 to April 2023? So the projected passenger movement and the actuals so far. Did the airport increase the fees charged on the airline tickets from 2020 to now? How many times have the airport improvement fees been increased and by how much? Has this been extended and to when? Has the airport departure fee increased? When was the latest airport departure fee increase? Was the minister informed of these increases? Did the minister or the council of ministers sign off on these increases? Who is in charge of maintaining the relationship with the airline? Is it the airport? Is it the tourist? Is it the minister? Is it all of the above? And did the airport tourist office or minister pay any visit to the airlines to maintain relationship with St. Martin and to apologize for the dire situation they are forced to operate in? Mr. Chairman, I want to once again reiterate and bring home the importance of first impressions, Mr. Chairman, by encouraging airport management team to always bear in mind that they are in charge of the doorway to our country. And always bear in mind that if you don't leverage first impressions correctly, your customers might get the wrong idea in their head. And if they had a negative interaction with you or any person at our airport, that might be the only memory that actually stays with them long term. And we can't afford that, Mr. Chairman. So I'm urging the management team to consider optimizing customer service during the reconstruction, not only for our visitors, but also, Mr. Chairman, for the airport community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Heiliger Martin. We now move to the second speaker, Christoph Emmanuel. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon to you. Our honorable ministers, the Prime Minister and the Minister of TIAT, good afternoon. With their support and staff, my honorable colleagues, good afternoon to everyone and the people of St. Martin who's watching and listening by whichever means. Mr. Chairman, Elon Musk took over Twitter, and he was in an interview with his former CEO. And she made mention that, yes, we have made some mistakes. And Elon Musk turned to her and said, mistakes and failures comes with consequences. And she was fired on the spot. I sat here and I listened to the presentation that the Honorable Minister of TIAT gave a while ago. And I'm happy that the former CEO of the airport, Regina, is here, because I would wonder and hope that she would probably navigate him through all the fluff that was shown a while ago, because that's exactly what it is. Because there's nothing new in that presentation to what the people of St. Martin don't know already. And you know, what is even disturbing is the reaction of the airport, especially in relations to the retardant paint. I was wondering if that wasn't a discussion or a point of discussion, if that would have ever been sort of in the presentation. I guess not. Because you see, here's the issue with this. The Honorable Minister, through you, Mr. Chair, said that it was an oversight. The contractor make an oversight. Mr. Chairman, the consultant said that it's an oversight. If it's one thing I know of this minister, with his engineering skills, it wouldn't have passed him. It wouldn't have passed him, not this minister. So for the minister to come here and say that this is what he get from the consultant, I would have liked to see what that conversation was in the corner between he and that consultant. Because I would want to believe, Mr. Chairman, that the minister would have probably said, I can't tell the members of parliament that. You see, Mr. Chairman, Royal Haskonin is presently on the airport right now, part of the engineering team. Part of the engineering team on the airport right now. Under Royal Haskonin, Mr. Chairman, they have different companies. And one of those companies is NACO. And in 2017, NACO was requested by the airport to do that study. And I handed it to the minister and the prime minister. Detailed structure by structure. So then the question I have to ask, number one, where did that consultant come from? And who is that consultant? I hope it's not a consultant from Schiphol, because I would want to know, if you haven't seen that report, that it could have been an oversight. A $9 to $10 million oversight. And through you, Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Minister said they have done their due diligence. I am disturbed. I am disturbed because the document is in the airport archives. Div number, date, everything is there. In addition to that, Mr. Chairman, on the signing of Ballasnadam with the contract, this report was part of it. Ask them if this report wasn't part of the agreement in signing their contract. It was. It is impossible, and it is not true that it was an oversight. Mr. Chairman, what it is a deliberate extortion of money. That's what it is. We are not talking about a Mickey Mouse house or a playhouse or something in the backyard when you build a tree house, Mr. Chairman. That's not what we are talking about. That's not what we are talking about. To use their terms, we are talking about the princess. That's what we're talking about. And for them to come and say it was an oversight. And the Council of Ministers believe it, and they come here in Parliament, and that's what they're telling us. It was an oversight, Madam Chair. Mr. Chairman, sorry, my apologies. On page 10, it said, typical damage to fire protective coating on steel columns and beams was observed inside the terminal. Explanation, fire-resistant paint loses its fire retardant effect due to exposure to water or high humidity. In the aftermath of Hurricane Irma, due to the water leakage through the roof and the observed high humidity in several areas, ABT concludes that the fire protective coating are damaged, considering the fire resistant requirement in relations to the building permit. In relations to the building permit, fire protective coatings should be reviewed during the rebuild of the terminal when necessary repairs are fully repainted. I mean, you can't make this up. It's in the report. It's in the report requested by the airport through NARCO, who is a partner company of Royal Haskonin that's present on the airport now. And they come to Parliament now. And they come to Parliament and they tell us it's an oversight. It's an oversight. And we must believe it. And we must believe it. Mr. Chairman, I listened to the project director, manager, Myrtle Brill, yesterday in the interview. And he said, well, he's not answering those questions because he's just here to talk about the reconstruction. And yes, it was just an oversight, but we're going to move on. It can't just simply just be an oversight, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in addition to that, I also listened to the CEO. And he said, yeah, there is some noise, and that noise comes from the drilling. Mr. Chairman, I would like to play some noise for you. And they passed around a memo on the airport, and I doubt the Council of Ministers got it, during the noise. And they said that they did a test. And in that test, it was observed that for clients or workers to be disturbed by the noise, it has to be for 15 minutes or more. Mr. Chairman, I am asking the Council of Ministers through you for them to please produce that test. Why am I asking for that test? I would like to ask the Council of Ministers, do they know in terms of decibels how long it takes an individual to be lethargic, to be dizzy, to be confused? Mr. Chairman, is a tactic that is used by the CIA when they are trying to get terrorists to talk. They play loud music, a constant repetitiveness of noise. And it's not 15 minutes. Mr. Chairman, I have the research. It's not 15 minutes. Mr. Chairman, I want to play this with your permission. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, that is the airport, 8:30 in the morning. My colleague Grisha Heiliger Martin make mention, what if something from the top fall to the bottom? That is 8:30 in the morning, and that went on for 3 minutes straight, Mr. Chairman. 3 minutes straight. That the workers have to deal with every day. The passengers have to deal with every day, Mr. Chairman. And the management simply shrug it off as it's part of it. The Honorable Minister of TIAT said that they can't do it at night because of productivity. Exactly what does that mean? So fresh workers coming in at night are lazy, so they don't want to work. Which one is it? What does the productivity mean that they can't do it at night, Mr. Chairman? Because one would want to believe that most often when you have these types of projects, the most time you will get work done is when the place is empty, quiet, and moving and working at night. Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions. The contract with Schiphol had various components like contractual management assistant, procurement review and assistant, CFO replacement, recruitment, and the review of the tender document with changes to the tender document. Based on the above, I have a few questions I would like answered. Mr. Chairman, please, if we can get the answers in the order that they was asked, please, because I'm asking them in that order. Question 1. When did PJIAA team and the boards of PJIAE and PJIAH realize that there was going to be a very serious budget overrun? What was the position of the boards and the shareholder? And can we get the minutes of those meetings? What was specifically the advice of Schiphol, seeing the bad experience they have had with Ballasnadam International when building Pier 1 at Schiphol, which ended up in arbitration? Does the management expect any more budget amendments in the coming 1.5-year period prior to the airport completion? What's the actual contract value of Ballasnadam presently versus the awarded original contract to Ballasnadam, and in line with the World Bank norms and procurement? I can answer that. Mr. Chairman, during the whirlwind media blitz tour of Wednesday of the works at the airport, it became clear that the airport was well aware of the report that existed regarding the peel and paint on the steel structure, and that it was an oversight according to the local project director. Is this true? And if so, why wasn't this acknowledged from day one? So, of course, Mr. Chairman, when did they realize it was an oversight? Who is responsible for this matter being overlooked, seeing the excessive costs and delays now attached to the needed works as claimed by PJIAE management and its consultants? What technical review was done by the American group that PJIAE management informed Parliament of during its meeting in this hall back in 2021? Didn't the procurement team reviewing the tender documents not notice this work deliverable aspect? What was Schiphol's role in this with all the experts they had here on the island? Who will carry the responsibility for the disastrous mistake of some $10 million? Or will we sweep this under the rug as well? Mr. Chairman, lately we saw an advertisement in the local media for the recruitment of a CFO for the airport. What's the intention as the contractual agreements with Schiphol spoke of internal candidates being selected and trained by Schiphol and then appointed as counterparts to the Schiphol CFO until they take the reins themselves? Mr. Chairman, through you, why weren't any internal candidates selected, seeing we had a few? One is presently running the show at GEBE, and the other is running the financial show at PJIAE. Was Schiphol compensated for such? And if yes, how much? Will this be prepared to St. Martin? Mr. Chairman, we have had now 3 CFOs from Schiphol, and a 4th one is most probably on their way come January 2023 when Mr. Van der Cliff leaves. How can PJIAE have any proper financial management when constantly the head of the body is gone? Mr. Chairman, through you, it looks like a complete political landscape down there with changes every year. When will the permanent CFO be instated, and can we have some sort of guarantee that it will be a child of the soil as was the intention on the Schiphol contract? Or did the government now decide that they aren't qualified anymore? Mr. Chairman, we have had the World Bank with their procurement policies stating distinctively when it comes to the removal of debris and the environment. Mr. Chairman, through you, I would like to ask, what is the contractual amount that is paid to the French company to remove debris from the airport and is placed on the property in Cole Bay? What is the contractual amount? And, Mr. Chairman, how long is that contract for? Because, Mr. Chairman, in the contract of Ballasnadam, in that contract, it is stated that the debris will be removed from the island. But we are seeing, Mr. Chairman, that that debris is packed up in Cole Bay. I would like to know what is that contractual amount and what does that contract all has inside of it. Mr. Chairman, I want to sort of caution the Council of Ministers in this matter. Okay, I'm trying to see how I could rephrase it in a different manner, Mr. Chairman. There is much more documents that I hope you have received, because there's much more documents that I have, Mr. Chairman, concerning the management team of the airport. So I would like to know through you, Mr. Chairman, if there's any new development, any sort of new development that the Council of Ministers has given to the management team of the airport. Any new development in terms of managing the airport. I would like to know. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Christophe Emmanuel. At this time, we would have had MP Rolando Bryson, but he had to leave. So I shall adjourn the meeting for 2 minutes.
Welcome back. And the next person on the speakers list is MP William Allen. MP William Allen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, initially, it was not my intention to speak, at least not in this first round, for any amount of time, and I still don't have that intention. Well, the intention to speak I have, but not speak for too long. So, Chairman, but what kind of inspired me was when I looked at the presentation by the minister, and it took us back, the presentation presented by the minister and was made by PGIAE and hosted by G Money. And on behalf of the airport, they tried, or the G Money tried to bring people acquainted with where we started. How have we gotten here? Initially is how did we start? So when did we start the first airport? How did we get to the name of the airport? The reconstruction that took place in 2007, and then how did we get here? 2017 hurricane. Mr. Chairman, but the impression sometimes will be created that it is this minister and this government or this coalition that has brought us here where we are. So, Chairman, I did not say anybody said what they have said. I said sometimes the impression may want to be created that it's this minister and this government, this coalition, that is responsible for where we are and how we have gotten here. As I said, Mr. Chairman, I don't intend to speak for too long, but I would simply want to ask the minister one question, and that is, which government agreed to bringing in Schiphol for managing or for assisting in management of this airport? Which government did that? Because I can remember being here in Parliament when some of these discussions had been taking place, and some who are questioning or may question today were sitting on the other side of the fence, on the other side of the coalition, and were embracing the signing with Schiphol and PGIAE. And I want to bring that as a reminder of how we got here. Mr. Chairman, it is good also for the minister in answering questions to sort of remind Parliament, and through Parliament remind St. Martin as to who offered Schiphol or who offered the Dutch board members on the board of PGIAE. We seem to forget sometimes how we have gotten somewhere. But the consequences of what we have today is often rooted in the decisions that were made yesterday or the day before. So who offered board members to the Dutch on the board of the airport? Mr. Chairman, the government that signed the agreement with Skip Hull, Mr. Chairman, I would like the minister to provide information as to whether this agreement left any room for amending the agreement that was made with Skip Hull. So you made an agreement. Was it possible to amend that agreement? Yes or no? So, Chairman, these things are important that we highlight them. And just before I close, Mr. Chairman, there's one thing I would like to address that probably has nothing, well, probably indirectly has to do with this meeting, but with meetings in general, because I've noticed that of late, there are members of parliament who are creating the impression to the general public that they have requested an urgent meeting and it was not convened within 4 days. Mr. Chairman, the rules of order are clear, but not to everyone, it would appear. When you request, as members of parliament, an urgent meeting, you first have to indicate the reason why you want this meeting to be an urgent meeting. And then it is the prerogative of the chair to agree. And once the chair agrees, because the chair has to notify other members why they are being called to an urgent meeting. Because if you wake up on Monday and there's no meeting convened, maybe until Thursday or Friday, and then you suddenly get a convocation to come to a meeting tomorrow, it has to be clear why that meeting is being convened. And if the chair does not consider it an urgent, there is an urgency for that meeting.
Point of order,
will
Mr.
not
Chairman.
be called as an urgent
This is not
meeting.
about, point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Did you give a point of order to someone?
MP Grisha Martin, I have not given you the point of order yet. Please,
Really?
please hold on to that. Let Mr. Marlin finish and you can raise your question.
Mr. Chairman, we also now I lost where I was going with the final remark. No, I'm finished as far as that urgency is concerned, because there seems to be, as I said, a misunderstanding, including with this meeting. And then, in specifically with this meeting, why the meeting could not be convened at a given moment, practically, not practically half, but a great deal of members of parliament were in the Netherlands, and another amount of members of parliament were at Parlatino. So if the chairman convenes a meeting then we would hear the chair's convening a meeting and the meeting is not, does not make sense because there are members not here. Mr. Chairman, on another issue, a member who spoke before me allowed people to listen to some noise and said these are the tactics that the Nazis use, or these are tactics that the CIA use to make someone.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
MP Christopher, I would believe you can hold your point of
No,
order.
no, Mr.
till-
Chairman. Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Let
Mr. Chairman, the member of parliament made mention of me, of something
I
I
did
did
He
not
did not
made-
mention
I
your
did not
name.
This
He
is
said
about
one
Nazis.
MP.
I said a member
would
of
say-
parliament
I
did
would
not
say-
mention nothing
before
about
me.
Nazis, Mr.
I would like to
Chairman.
adjourn the meeting for 2 minutes to
didn't
have
say
a
nothing about no
clarification.
Nazis.
Meeting adjourned.
Good. I didn't say nothing about no Nazis. I asked for a point of order. I didn't say
MP Marlin, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I said a speaker who spoke before me, and I made reference to a tape that is used, and I made mention of Nazi. It is incorrect, and I withdraw that. The speaker said it is used by the CIA, and that I can stand by. But, Mr. Chairman, this is not true. When tapes are used, when water sounds, the dripping of water, it is not after 3 minutes, it sends you totally klooks. It is not if you hear the drilling sound for 3 minutes and it sends you off. So, Chairman, they would turn a pipe on and multiply the sound of that dripping. Ping, 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 and you would hear that all night. Sometimes that water drops in the center of your head. Those are the kind of tactics that they use. If on any construction site, people would have to turn off a drill or anything after 1 minute, then you can't shoot concrete on the construction site at a hospital. You can't shoot concrete anywhere else because the truck is not going to for 1 minute and then cut it off and give you 5 minutes to catch yourself and then again opens it for 5 minutes. Mr. Chairman, I can imagine that these things be said in order to create the necessary action and reaction from the public to illustrate. I can agree that having constant noise on a workplace is not something that passengers or even workers should be exposed to. I can agree to that. But to make it sound that once it exceeds 3 minutes, then people should not be allowed on that workplace, then we won't have construction workers themselves probably on site unless they're wearing Bose headphones. And then it's dangerous because they may not hear something falling. They may not hear a different sound that they should not hear. Mr. Chairman, we need to keep things, as far as I'm concerned, in proper perspective and not sensationalize things to make it sound that it is worse than it is. Mr. Chairman, I thank you.
Thank you, MP Marlin. The next person on the speakers. MP Sarah Westcott Williams. MP Westcott, you have the floor. Okay, before MP Westcott, you proceed, I would like to check with MP Grisha Martin if she really needs the point of order again.
Mr. Chairman, really? I needed it then. I don't want it now, so you can keep your point of order.
It's all right. MP Christopher Emmanuel, do you need your point of order? No. MP Grisha, MP Sarah Westcott Williams, you may take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good afternoon to you, a good afternoon to my colleagues, and a good afternoon to all tuned in to this meeting here this afternoon. A good afternoon to the ministers and their entourage. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the Minister of TIAT, Interim Minister of TIAT, for his presentation. And I would like the following questions to be addressed in addition to several that I had, which have been asked by my colleagues who spoke before me. Mr. Chairman, the minister referred very briefly in the context of the reconstruction of the PJIA to the U.S. preclearance. And if the minister can provide an update on U.S. preclearance in terms of the reconstruction, so where does it, if it does, fit into the reconstruction with cost and anything that relates to U.S. preclearance as part of the reconstruction? That's one part of my question. And the second part of that same question is, where does the matter of U.S. preclearance in general, where is it at? What is the status of U.S. preclearance for St. Martin? So I want the answer in two parts. In the context of the reconstruction, and where does it stand generally, it being the U.S. preclearance so often talked about. Mr. Chairman, the minister made reference and showed a beautiful picture of several workers, many workers, who are employed at the airport as part of the reconstruction project. Mr. Chairman, I am not sure if the minister has acquainted himself with some of the timeline shown on the screen. And the minister made a point of and emphasized the point of the reconstruction, so the construction agreement having been signed in October 2021. However, there is quite a history before that. And fact is, reconstruction delays or not, World Bank bureaucracy or not, COVID pandemic or not, up until now, the main reason for the overall delay in the financing of the Princess Juliana International Airport following Hurricane Irma is political. Is political. And when I said that, I don't know if the minister acquainted himself, that's the part I'm talking about. If the minister is cognizant of that delay, not reconstruction delay, whatever, materials can get, whatever, oversights, whatever the case may be, pandemic, World Bank bureaucracy, all topics on their own. But fact is that the biggest delay was political before the project itself was signed. Not a reconstruction, the project. So, coming back to the picture as presented of the workers who are part of this project, the minister mentioned an amount of 130. And I would like that broken down, please. The minister mentioned 130 local personnel. And I would like that broken down in terms of the jobs. And when the minister say local, are they local? Are they local residents? Are they, and I'm sure the minister could give a perfect picture of this also with his other cap on. So I would like that breakdown. And then, Mr. Chairman, most speakers before me have referred to it. And I am somewhat troubled, I'm troubled really, but I am perturbed by the statement that we had such an important matter regarding the reconstruction overlooked by, and according to the slide, and I need to pause here a moment and ask if we please can receive the presentation. If it hasn't been sent yet, if it can be sent, and if we can receive it. Too much of information was provided for us just to take note of while being presented by the minister. So I would really like that presentation, because I can tell you from what I have been able to glean thus far, I think, based on the presentation, we will be asking for another meeting. But that's of another order. But I want to come back to the point. The engineer and architect overlooked this matter. So that what was overlooked, are there any consequences? And I know my question is what has been asked by colleagues before, maybe differently, I'm formulating it differently. But when I tie that into the fact of the statement that the World Bank has recommended that an analysis/evaluation be done at the end of the project, and we need to take note of overlooking in this in the designing, in the whatever it was, by the engineer and the architect. That's what was written on the slide here. So is the government okay with that? And okay that a review will come at the end? Is my question regarding that matter. Mr. Chairman, I just want to emphasize a question posed before, and that is with respect to the resignation of several CFOs of the airport. The question has been asked, and has that triggered, at least in the mind of the ministers, a red flag by any chance? CFO after CFO after CFO. In November, I believe we received them on the 23rd of November, we were provided written answers by the minister regarding the matter of our national airport. In general, the focus was on the dismissal of Mr. Hyman and the dossier and all of that. Too many questions posed then were answered by the minister. I cannot comment on that. I cannot comment on that. That is what they told me, they being the airport. But Mr. Chairman, for Parliament, that is unacceptable. The minister needs to be able to rely on the answers provided to him and state them to Parliament as coming from the minister, the one politically responsible to Parliament. And if between the minister and the other party something went wrong, or the information wasn't provided, or they told the minister it can't be provided, then that's between the minister and those responsible to him. But the answers provided to Parliament is between the minister and those who are called to hold the minister accountable and responsible, and that is Parliament. Mr. Chairman, it's just like the President of Parliament. Okay, let me draw the analogy with the President of Parliament. The President of Parliament's role, amongst others, and I say this thinking of a meeting we had this morning, so I want to make it very clear in this public meeting, is representing the Parliament of St. Martin. I can't ask any of my colleagues in here to give account for any of their action. Yes, we could have a discussion in terms of, did you think that was right? Did you think that was a right approach? Maybe whatever. However, when it comes to the President of Parliament, every member of Parliament can ask the President to give account because he or she represents us all. So I just want to make that clear. So if I'm asking a question to President this or President that, it is not a member of Parliament. It is the President of Parliament who represents the Parliament of St. Martin, of which I am part. So let's get that understood well. So the CFO's resignations, did that trigger, or did the sequence of events with respect to that post trigger any red flags with the government? Where do things start is my next question. Where do things stand, rather, with respect to the personnel? You know, we had lots of issues out in the public domain, so where do we stand today? Payments and agreements, just give me a synopsis. Doesn't have to be too long. This is the status of the personnel of the Princess Juliana International Airport. If that if that can be given. Mr. Chairman, I express my concern that regardless to what the issues are, we will have an analysis and evaluation at the end. I want to repeat a question that was raised and answered in writing by the minister back in November, and that had to do with any, if any, ongoing investigations at the airport, one, and I would like a more candid response from the minister where that is concerned. The issue of forensic Caribbean services was highlighted in the questions as to any investigations or results of investigations carried on by them. And this is a reason why, at least for me, I need to receive the presentation that was made, because I might have missed it in the presentation while trying to listen to the minister and look at the presentation. Of course, you don't look and listen to it, but anyhow, besides that. But I would like to know if in the presentation it was apparent whether this additional loan that the airport sought or is seeking is still on. The minister had indicated that this loan with regional lenders would have helped the financial position of the airport, and I would like to know if that is still on, and if it is, where it's at. Mr. Chairman, the minister has confirmed that in 2019, a review of the project by the World Bank had taken place, but the minister stopped short of providing that review, and I would like to know if he can, if he still can. We have been informed by the ministers, more than one, that the matter of the corporate governance task force was replaced. The task force in any case was replaced by the I-team, the implementation team. At the time, the minister indicated that no report was yet done by the I-team. Has the I-team now presented a report as to the progress of corporate governance on the Princess Juliana International Airport? Mr. Chairman, the minister indicated, and I think it was partially shown in the presentation as well, that we are on budget, or at least the statement on budget comes from the answers provided by the minister in November last, so nearly a month ago. And that the 152 million guilders plus 20 million for contingency, however, the contingency as presented then for the 20 million was already spoken to. So that money was already allocated what it's for, a little cost overrun here, a little extra there, etc., etc. So with the delay now, is there any additional cost? And where will that come from? And is more money necessary because of that? Because, again, I repeat, the 20 million for contingency reasons was spoken for already, and it was detailed as to what exactly. Mr. Chairman, with those questions, and hoping that the questions by my colleagues, the colleagues who spoke before me, will be answered, I would want to thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, MP Westcott. The next person I see is MP George Pansoflid. MP George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to the chair, my colleagues in Parliament, our Griffith, of course, our Honourable Minister with the two hats of TIAT and also Labour, and of course his support staff, those that are viewing and those that are listening. Mr. Chairman, when we are doing any kind of a construction, especially when it costs or it's quite expensive, it is important for us, Mr. Chairman, to, and I believe it is very important for us to ensure that we put it on paper. And I'm going to use a small example, Mr. Chairman, as to some 30-something years ago when I was building my home in Salty Ward. I made sure that I had an agreement between myself and the contractor, not verbal but written agreement, because, Mr. Chairman, even back then I know sometimes that one says one thing and then they change their mind afterwards. So I made sure that the contractor and myself made an agreement. He's going to do X, Y, Z. He detailed exactly what it is he has to do. We sat down, went through the contract, and I was in agreement, and he was also in agreement, and we signed. The contract stated what I wanted done, the time frame within which it has to be done, and the cost, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately for him, but fortunately for me in a sense, because of that contract, when the job was just about to be completed, the contractor realized that he should have charged me more than what he charged me originally. Mr. Chairman, what I did, and not to pat myself on the back, the amount that he said it should have amounted to, when he told me, Mr. Chairman, I decided to still pay for it. Because why? I realized, even my little knowledge of construction, that what he was doing, Mr. Chairman, definitely, Mr. Chairman, was worth more than what he charged. And he not only built, but he advised me as to, he said, don't put this here, put that there. He just didn't build what I said. He said, look, this will do better here than there. So I appreciate it. Because of that fact, Mr. Chairman, I decided to pay the amount that he requested. Now, Mr. Chairman, today we're talking about a matter that is of humongous importance because it affects the entire economy of St. Martin, which is our airport. Now, Mr. Chairman, although we all want to play our political games, Mr. Chairman, I think this is not one to play politics with. I listened to the presentation by our Honorable Minister. And Mr. Chairman, I am trying to understand. Because, Mr. Chairman, the NARCO made a report on repairs to all the buildings. They made a report, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sure it was very detailed as to what the damages are, what should take place, and so on. And Mr. Chairman, we had, and I believe NARCO, I believe was said is a Dutch, let me use the word conglomerate. If it's not correct, forgive me, but it's Dutch. And then we had our local professionals, Mr. Chairman, under Corgan, which is a consulting agency also, to also who definitely had access to this report. Mr. Chairman, what I don't understand is how did we come to the point where NARCO made a report, and then our consultant, Corgan, I'm sure had access to the report. How did we come to the point where it was allowed to be increased by $9 to $10 million? How did that happen? How did that happen? Because, you see, now, I got to be very careful because even though we have, what's the word again in floor of Parliament? Immunity. I am still very careful, thank you, as to what to say, and persons cannot defend themselves. But, Mr. Chairman, why would you, having access to all this information, Mr. Chairman, allow it to come to the point where we are faced, or the airport is faced, or the people of St. Martin are faced with an extra $9 to $10 million? That has to be explained because we have our own project management unit who should be overlooking this, because I know when you're doing any kind of construction with them, Mr. Chairman, if it's done properly, there has to be someone or some organization that comes and ensures that you are following the requirements as laid down in the contract. I think that's how it goes. You have to make sure that you build, when you do stage 1, The inspector comes and he or she looks and makes sure that it is being done according to the specifics. But in this case, somehow, Mr. Chairman, it is allowed to increase to $9 to $10 million, Mr. Chairman, which will cost us more. How, what happened? And then we have NARCO, who made the report, also being part of the present situation. So who is responsible, Mr. Chairman? I had some questions, Mr. Chairman, but I heard questions before, so I am between two whether to ask them, but my issue is, I'm sure a contract was signed, and in the contract it must state exactly how much the cost would be. So therefore, as I said in the beginning, if it states what the cost should be, Mr. Chairman, any increase in cost should be on the contractor, not on St. Martin. Let me say St. Martin. I won't say airport, St. Martin. But again, I don't have the contract in my hands, so I don't know. So it is important to find exactly why is it that it was allowed to reach to this point, whereas we have a report from NARCO and also is supervised, let me use the word supervised, by our own. Mr. Chairman, I won't continue more. I know my colleague has access to a lot of information, and sometimes, you know, it can be dangerous for MP to have access to information, you know, for others, definitely. But I'll refrain from saying what I was going to say, because it will be, again, the person that's here to defend themselves, so I'll leave that alone. But Mr. Chairman, in all seriousness, though, we have to be very cautious as to what is taking place. And yes, I agree, a lot of politics has been played with the matter of the airport, and I wouldn't go into that because, again, when you have time to look at certain matters and you have experienced something, Mr. Chairman, you can say, well, it's because of this one that did this and that one that did that. Mr. Chairman, again, they're not here, so they're not here on the floor to defend themselves. Yep, all right. Yeah, I got it. It's in here. So, Mr. Chairman, questions were asked. I'll await the answers to see exactly if I have any need for a second round. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP George. The next person on the list is MP Melissa Gums. MP Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to you, my colleagues, those joining us in various ways, and to the ministers and their support staff. Minister Teat, you know I usually keep it short. I had two questions, but MP Westcott kind of went with my first one, which was essentially to ask the minister, or thank him rather, for stating that many people are incorrectly saying that the airport has been under construction for 5 years, when if you listen to the minister's update, that the financing was signed off in October 2021, it's only actually been under construction for a year and soon to be 2 months. So initially I was gonna ask the minister for a breakdown of the factors that caused those delays, but MP Westcott kind of let the cat out of the bag, so on to my second question. Minister, through you, Mr. Chair, one of your predecessors, who is now my colleague in Parliament, explained to Parliament in 2020 that the then CFO was under a seconding contract. For the public tuned in who may not know, through you, Mr. Chair, secondment is an arrangement where a company has temporarily hired an individual for a specific position. That person can come from within the organization, or they can come from externally as well. You see that a lot in the trust industry, for example. But through you, Mr. Chairman, to the minister, have the subsequent CFOs also been under seconding contracts and seconding agreements via Schiphol, as that might explain their seemingly sudden departures? And could we also receive an update on what I remember was meant to be the local counterpart, which is why these seconding assignments were made in the first place? And that's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Gums. I don't see anyone else. Okay. The next person on the list is MP Ludmila D. Weaver. MP Ludmila, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to you, to my colleagues, to the Minister, Prime Minister, and your support team here. It's I made a note in my agenda from today because the discussion today has been very, very interesting, to say the least. And it's nice that we have the Minister, or the Acting Minister of TEAT, as well as the Minister of VSI here, because if you're going to talk about persons being in an environment that is, you know, equivalent to torturing a terrorist in a dark cell somewhere, then I'd say that maybe it's the way that we welcome people to the island, because that's what they're going to get in the rest of the island, where you're just going to be kept awake 24/7 with unbearable noise. Imagine when you're trying to do it when you're sleeping. But that's why I said I made a note of it, and I said MP Emmanuel played airport noise, because we were actually going through the airport last week when it happened. And it was not... It wasn't a good feeling. It wasn't a good sound, and I don't want to tell people necessarily how to do their job, but we are the members of parliament that hold the government accountable for decisions taken, as well as how it trickles down into the government-owned companies. Nonetheless, with that being said, I am sure that it has been said enough by the employees, by the airlines, by customers moving through that airport, that it is not an ideal situation. But the reality of it is that everything here takes time. And if we would stop, I'm going to repeat the words of a former prime minister of this country within the Kingdom of the Netherlands, St. Martin, that said, if we would stop just thieving and interfering for at least 1 year, our island going to be very, very, very far along. We would be, once again, the gem of the Caribbean that everyone wanted to aspire to be. And so take it where you want to go with that. I will have more opportunities to go into that deeper, but if we would just stop thieving and hooking up our own, then maybe we would get somewhere. With that being said, I believe there was a letter sent by the management of the airport, the CFO and the CEO, back on November 18th, inquiring about the staff and about a 12.5% cut. I understand that we are here, Mr. Chairman, today talking about the reconstruction of the airport, but an airport can't construct itself without the employees' willingness to be there and ability to actually just survive and be happy in their work environment. So up until last week, no response was given to the management of the airport. So what is the answer on whether or not the employees of the airport are going to get back their 12.5% that was taken away from them? In addition to that, the reason I see several persons today have mentioned something about the CFO, and I think that while we are talking about the realities of an airport damage from Hurricane Irma and all of the challenges we've had to date, including when funding was actually released, I would just like to remind everybody that it's very easy to stand up here with your immunity and point fingers at the past. But if you're going to waste time and point fingers in the past, then we definitely ain't going to get nowhere. Because I just want to hear solutions on how we're going to go forward. That's all I want to hear. And if I just don't understand how people think by bickering and complaining about stuff in the past is going to help us getting anywhere, without saying, I'm not going to make the same mistakes of the past, and I'm going to just give 1 year of stop thieving and setting up my family, and then hopefully we can move forward. So please give us an explanation as well of why the CFO is leaving, if it is a result of disagreements happening within the airport itself. And I will go back to why there was no answer given to the airport management of whether or not government will, the Council of Ministers will lift the removal of the 12.5%. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Ludmila De Weaver. The next person is MP Hyacinth Richardson. MP Richardson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to the Minister and his staff. Good afternoon to my colleagues. Good afternoon to the people of St. Martin. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to be back in the second round, but I want to say for the record, the National Alliance don't thief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Hyacinth Richardson. I don't see any more. I adjourn for a few minutes, like 5 minutes. But before I adjourn, I would just have a question to the Honorable Minister. Would you be able to share the PowerPoint presentation that you did today? And I would adjourn for 5 minutes to discuss with the Minister how soon can they answer these questions. Meeting adjourned for 5 minutes. Welcome back. After discussing with the ministers would like to come back to Parliament as soon as the recess is over, so which will be in January when the Parliament resumes. And with this, I would like to wish everyone in St. Martin a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. If any MP would like to wish, I can give the floor. If not, the meeting will be adjourned to continue in January. Meeting adjourned.